I'd say just give it a minute. Make it Oh yes, yeah. Thanks, Charlie.
Not the seat advice.
It's very, is it on? Yeah. Okay. It's very official looking. I keep getting blinded by that. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Killaloe Sailing Club. We're here this evening to be treated to a talk by Mark O'Connor on his recent sailing experience. And I think most of you will know Ronan, his uncle, and his cousin Killian, who's one of our instructors. And that's the connection. That's how we were lucky enough to snag Mark for this evening's talk. So no further ado, I'll just welcome you.
Well, first off, thank you very much for all coming down this evening and giving up your Wednesday evening to hear me talk about my adventures for the next hour or so. And yeah, just thank you for the welcome down here tonight. So my name is Mark O'Connor, and I'm the youngest Irishman to race solo across the Atlantic Ocean. So yeah, I'm going to just talk a little bit tonight about my campaign, what I've been doing for the last 3 years, effectively. The actual Transat race itself, the boat, and some of the kind of experiences, the good bits, the bad bits that I had during this race. So we'll kick off. So the Mini Transat, what was it? So it's a 7,500 kilometer race across the Atlantic Ocean, solo. And what I mean by that is I'm the only person on my boat. I do have other competitors. There was 90 boats. We all set off at the same time. But when I say solo, it's me on my own with no communication. I didn't have any phones on board. I didn't have any internet. I didn't have any outside assistance. So any decision I made, that was me and me only. And yeah, that's quite tough mentally as well, because usually you can discuss and make decisions as a crew, or whether that goes good or badly, there's someone else to blame at the end of the day. Whereas here, I'm very much on my own. So the race is split over 2 legs. I left France in September of last year. And the first leg was from Les Sables d'Olonne right down to the Canary Islands. And that took me about 7.5, 8 days. And I'll come back to that in a minute. And the second leg was 16.5 days, racing the Canaries across the Caribbean Peninsula. Another just pretty nice destinations, all in all. My boat, the reason it's called the Mini Transat, the Mini is the type of boat. It's called a Mini 650. It's 6.5 meters long or 21 feet. And transatlantic. So that's where we get the Mini Transat from. Unfortunately, we can't make the Atlantic any smaller. The Mini comes down to the size of the boat. So called Mini Skippy was the name of my boat, number 946, and designed specifically for the Mini Transat. Some that in mind. So you see one of the things you notice at the front is called a scow bow. It's very rounded. It's not a traditional pointy bow, and the reason for that is it acts more like a surfboard. It skims over the waves. And we kind of plane our way or surf our way across the Atlantic. It's built in 2018 in France. And as I said, only 6.5 meters long. That's where the Mini 650 comes into. So quite a small boat actually for crossing the Atlantic. To put it into a little bit of context for you, I have 6.5 by 3 meters, which is roughly the equivalent of 2 prison cells in Mountjoy. So I hope no one knows what that means from personal experience. But yeah, so I'm not doing too bad. I'm confined in 2 cell spaces for about 2.5 weeks. Another disgusting Christ almighty. Whoa. First one of that is going down when you turn that dog. It was rough. Excuse me for being cranky, but I got 3 minutes sleep there. 3. I'm tired. Ah. A little bit of rock and roll. Still is. Okay. I don't know, it's 10, 11 knots, but the waves are horrible. Really are. So you don't want to go too much of those. Sake, nothing's going my way. It's 3 o'clock, which means let's get some weather. Damn, I'm not getting anything in the weather. No, we have 1 small radio, 1 big radio. Neither are getting anything. Not great. Mini Transat race. You can see here we're all lined up on the start line. If you can pick out, like, where's Wally, but there I am, lined up for my start. And yeah, this first leg was really, really challenging. I suppose already before the start, I was quite nervous. Didn't manage to eat any breakfast that morning, because I knew we were heading out into some fairly strong weather. So we were heading out into the Bay of Biscay, and we were having a cold front come over. So we were expecting, big winds, sloppy seas from multiple directions. And what that really translated to me, for me, was that I was going to get very, very little sleep, and I was just going to be really uncomfortable. So I'm not usually one that suffers too much from seasickness, but in those conditions, I wasn't able to eat. There's no way on earth I wanted to heat up my jet boil, which is, how I heat up water to make my food. I'll come back to that a little bit later. But I definitely didn't want to light that up. It was just too bumpy, and I was just too afraid to spill hot water on myself. The autopilot couldn't handle the waves, just too big and too confused to have any sort of reliance on that. And so, yeah, you see in the video there, I was talking, I only got about 3 minutes sleep. Thankfully, I managed to get an hour or 2 elsewhere. But yeah, in the first 24 hours, 48 hours, I was running on empty. I was running on fumes completely. And when you're so tired like that, that's when you start making errors and mistakes. It's really simple stuff. It's stuff that I've done every day for the last 3 years during this training, etc., during the practice races. But when it comes down to it, and you're just so tired, you make really silly mistakes. So I'll give you an example for dropping the spinnaker. I didn't bear away enough. The thing was way too powered up, and I was trying to drop it in a really sloppy sea, about 20, 25, 30 knots. Let off the tack line, thing blew back straight away, got taken by a wave, boom, into my backstretch, Now, any other day, I would have been like, well, of course, that's normal. That's exactly what happens when you don't bear away enough and you try do maneuver too powered up. But that's not what was going through my head at the minute. I had just gone a really big broach. The boat had spun up. I was just, okay, wow, it's a war. I just need to drop my sail right now, get it down, just go. You don't have time to bear away, which, you know, your thought process is completely messed up. So yeah, this is what I'm trying to battle against the elements and also against myself. Come in, there's a few seats, I think, here. So yeah, battling against myself and the elements. So as we were finally coming out of the Bay of Biscay, things were starting to settle down a little bit more. The waves were dropping down, and I probably got one of the scariest messages you can get when you're offshore sailing. This lovely depression system was called Hurricane Gabriella, and I got this message when I was about 200 miles offshore that this storm was incoming and that we need to make for safe harbor, find the closest port in Portugal. That was the gist of the message. We were when I got this first, we were floating around offshore. There was really no wind. It had completely dropped off. And one of my competitors called me up on the VHF and said, "Mark, the race is cancelled. There's a hurricane." And I was like, "Yeah, go on, pull the other one." You know, I didn't believe him at all. He said, "No, check your race tracker." So I pulled it out of the bag, and yeah, sure enough, there was a message saying exactly that. The hurricane was incoming, and I had 48 hours to hightail it back to land. So yeah, unfortunately, that was the end of leg one. At that moment, I wasn't too concerned about it. The only thing I was concerned about was finding my way back to Portugal. And here, this is in the port of Cascais, which is very near Lisbon. On the map is there. So I was, not going to be caught in the middle of it, but unfortunately, I was here and the fleet was spread out between the north of Spain and the south of Portugal. So you can imagine from a race management point of view, it's very complicated to stop a race for only a couple of people. It's either you're 100% in, you're 100% out. So they made a really good call. Having been in Cascais and seen the waves crash up on the harbour wall, we were all very, very happy to be in safe harbour and not caught out in the 6 to 8 meter swell they had announced with 65 knots. So yeah, it was a good decision. So what that meant in terms of the sporting side of things for us was that, well, the race leg one was cancelled, and we just had to do a delivery trip down to the Canaries. So we had 4 days of sailing with our phones, which was very unusual because usually we didn't have any contact or any phones or any weather information. So we were able to watch a little bit of Netflix on sailing down to the Canary Islands. So we had 4 lovely days, beautiful conditions, sailing the Portuguese trade winds down to the Canaries. But it was a little bit bittersweet because, yeah, okay, fine, the conditions were nice, etc. But there was something missing just because, you know, everyone had worked so hard to get there, to be, you know, in that position. And I'm not just talking about being where they were on water. Yes, we had gone through a lot of bad weather to get out of the Bay of Biscay, but also just, you know, getting to the start line is such a challenge on this race. I worked for the previous 2.5 years to qualify and to get my spot and to fundraise. And so, yeah, just to have the whole thing kind of ripped up in that one little short message, I was going, oh, okay, well, now what, sort of thing. So anyway, that's, you know, you have to deal with these sort of things. That's sport, and certainly in a sport like ours with sailing, it's you're always trying to, you know, deal with the unknowns, and weather is one of the biggest unknowns, and it's what makes our sport so great, but also so complicated. So I made it into the Canary Islands anyway. Oh, sorry, I had my slides a little bit mixed up here. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I sleep, because I was talking earlier about, you know, the lack of sleep when the conditions are so bad. And that is something you just kind of have to put up with. I think probably any mother newborn in a household is going to corroborate with me. And just sometimes you just have to put up with not sleeping. And the human body is amazing. It's incredible to see when you push, just how far you can keep pushing, etc. So I'm not sleeping for 8 hours a night. There's absolutely no way that's happening. So what I tend to do on shorter races is 20 minutes, 20-minute nap, get up, check, one, that I'm not going to crash into anyone, and two, that I'm still going fast. So I'll check my sail trim, make sure I'm still heading where I want to be going. There hasn't been a wind shift while I've been sleeping. And if that's all good, then either I will go back to sleep if I can, or I need to get up and work, because it's a really critical moment where I'm close to other competitors, and now's the time to push to get a few extra places, etc. And there's certain things called sleep windows. So as part of the preparation for this Mini Transat, with my training group, we discussed a lot with sleep doctors and looked at the science behind, well, not sleeping. And so one of the things this doctor was saying was that you can actually kind of trick your body into thinking you're getting more sleep than you actually are if you line up certain sleep windows. So for example, when you usually go to bed, if it's around maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock, try get, 20 minutes to 40 minutes sleep then. He said you can either get 2 times 20, that works, or just, if you can't even get that, just get 20. And you'll fall asleep much faster and you'll fall into a deeper sleep. And then there's various points throughout the day, around maybe 3, 4 a.m. in my case. That was always the case. I knew I needed to go to sleep for a solid hour. So that was 3 times 20. Without that, I really couldn't function at all. And then certain times mid-morning and mid-afternoon. So all in all, I was aiming to get about 6 hours of sleep per 24 hours, because you can burn the candle at both ends, so to speak, but you can't do that long term. And so we're very much talking about a marathon and not a sprint. The Transat, I was at sea for 24 and a half days. You can pull an all-nighter for one night. You cannot do that for 3 weeks. That's not going to be possible. So and when I fall asleep, sometimes you fall into such a deep sleep, you can imagine the fatigue is going to build up over a couple of days. I can only describe my alarm clock as a house alarm connected to an egg timer. You turn it up 20 minutes and it is the loudest sound I think you can known to man. There's not a chance in hell you're going to sleep through this one. It's like a fire alarm or a house alarm going off. So yeah, that's my sleeping pattern on board. And the other half of the battle is looking after myself, is eating well. Making sure that I'm getting all the nutrients, the vitamins, and yeah, all my calories, basically, to keep going and push as hard as I can. So you're sleeping less, you need to eat more. There's a deficit somewhere. You're burning more by being awake. When you're asleep, you're in a little bit more of a hibernation state. So you have to eat a lot more calories every day. So I was pretty much eating space food, freeze-dried food. It's in a sachet with powdered, it's kind of rice and chicken or chicken curry, kormas and stuff like that. Don't knock them till you try them. Everyone goes, oh, geez, how did you survive on that for 3 weeks or 2 weeks? But they're a lot better than you think. All I say is, yeah, don't knock it till you try it. So I had a system called a jet boil, which is just a camping stove with a little gas bottle on the bottom. You throw in your 250 ml of water, click it on. About a minute later, you have boiling water. Throw it in your bag, mix it up, leave that for 10, 15 minutes. And you have, your fully nutritious freeze-dried food. And the best part is there's no washing up, because you eat straight from the bag. You just put it straight in the bin. And then water. The water I was drinking, the water I used to cook, is all fresh water that I brought with me. I didn't have a water maker on board, so you had to provision for ultimately up to about 20 days. You had to consider at some stage in your planning that you would have a problem and that you would get delayed, because the last thing you want to do is run out of water. So we do have 10 liters of water that is security, and it's sealed with a special kind of plumb seal, and the race directors will verify that at the end that you haven't touched it. So the idea is that if you end up in a life raft, or you have a really big problem, that's not to be touched unless you absolutely need it. So there's a penalty of about, I think it was 4 or 5 hours if you open this water. So really not worth it. So I personally brought 120 liters with me. I estimated that would be enough for about my 2 weeks. I was basing off about 5 liters per day. And actually in the end, I was a good bit under that. I had probably 30 liters in the middle of the crossing. I was working out my, how much I'd used, doing all my counts, etc., etc. And I realized that I probably had about 30 liters extra than I needed. And it's a really scary but good moment to decide that, okay, I'm going to throw that overboard. You're throwing away your fresh water. So if you have a problem the next day, you're going to be kicking yourself that you've thrown out all your drinking water, but you're saving 30 kilos. And given, how high a level we're racing at, I just felt, 30 kilos are going to make such a difference to make the boat go faster. And certainly in lighter winds, it's like, you're saving 30 kilos. My boat only weighs 1,000 kilos. So if I'm bringing 120 liters of water, that's 10% of the boat's weight. So just to kind of, give you some context on that. Oh, that's blocking that. A real mix. The oldest was 63 and the youngest was 22. Yeah. So yeah, real mix. I'd say the average age is probably early 30s. 30 to 35, but it's a really kind of diverse background. Most of the competitors are French. It's a very French race. So it's the Mini Transat leads from France. The class is organized in France. The trainings that I was doing anyway was through French. So when I first moved to France to do some racing, I wasn't expecting to stay there. Actually, I was expecting to come back. And I quickly realized that they're set up with the system in France. They have training centers and they do this thing, and I said, okay, if I want to do it properly, I have to be there. And so I threw myself in the deep end, and I decided to get a job working in a French sailing team, training in a French training center. Not that I understood what was going on for the first few months, not at all. But I wanted to challenge myself to put in the groundwork to learn and kind of integrate into that French system. And from there, I can progress and learn. So yeah, that was kind of my philosophy of the whole campaign. Talk a little bit about communication on board. I mentioned earlier that I don't have a phone. I don't have a satellite phone. Don't have any internet. So we're very, very, limited in what we can receive. We do have trackers. So if anyone was following along on the website, you could see where we all were. That was through the Yellow Brick tracker. We have VHF, which allows us to talk, about 15 miles around us to the nearest competitors, the cargo ships, or whoever it's going to be. And the last thing on the right is an SSB radio. Now, we were able to pick up our daily broadcast at 3 o'clock UTC every day. We tune into the right frequency, and we would get an update on our weather, and we would get an update on the fleet position, and if there's any other interviews, they would tell us. So that was a broadcast organized by the race organizers themselves, by the race directors. At 3 o'clock every day, we get 40 minutes of bulletin in French and in English, and they give us out our weather information like that way. So pretty limited, to be honest. It was in the format of a shipping forecast. It wasn't at all precise. You're trying to pick out weather of Ireland. You'd have Ireland with 2 blocks, and you're trying to figure out the weather in Dublin with 1 point in Belfast and 1 point in Tralee. That's kind of the weather you're up against, or the challenges you're up against. So leg 2, we left from the Canary Islands, La Palma, across the Guadeloupe. In a straight line, it's 2,500 miles, give or take. Unfortunately, it was not at all a straight line. I ended up sailing about 5,000, kilometers was 6,000 kilometers is what I sailed. And the reason for that was trade winds were absolutely killed. There's a huge storm, I'm sure it came up through Ireland and knocked you up for 6, but the knock-on effect of that was that the trade winds were absolutely disrupted, and we had to go very, very far south to get them. So as you see here in my diagram, it's 2,500 miles. It adds an extra about 400, 500 miles by going south. So I came right down by the Cape Verde Islands before getting into the trade winds. And then we were slingshotted across over to the Caribbean. So the start itself was really, really complicated. Just getting out of the Canary Islands, with the light winds that we had, it was shifting in every single direction. And there's really, the Canaries are such tall islands that you have huge wind shadows. So you have wind shadows for 150 miles in some cases. So you're trying to, you know, get out away from the islands before you can do what you want to do. Basically, you have to get out away from them, and then you can go south, or you have to kind of follow the channel between the two before you can start looking at tactics or your longer term strategy. So, up, leg, yeah. We were given a waypoint 150 miles south of La Palma. And as I said, it was really, really light winds. We're in the center of an anticyclone, so the wind was changing all the time. We're in a high pressure ridge. Getting out of the bay was already quite tricky. I got a really good start. I got off the line really, really well, but I fell into a hole straight away. The guys by the coast, they took off. The guys offshore, they got a little bit of breeze. They took off, and I was kind of left with 3 or 4 others in the middle. And that really, really challenging mentally. So you're stuck there, you're watching the whole fleet sail away from you, and I'm telling myself, okay, it's fine. It's, you know, 2,500, 3,000 mile race. This is mile 1. Let's not get upset about this. Let's keep on top of things. And so trying to battle the elements is one thing, but as I was saying earlier as well, it's mentally keeping on top of yourself is very, very important. So 150 miles to the waypoint. When I say slow, it took us 3 days to get there. For context, I was doing about 220, 230 miles a day when I got into the trade winds, but it took me 3 days to do 150 miles. So you can see, like, you're really crawling along. You're really, really struggling to move forward. And when I was saying there was wind shadows from the Canary Islands, you can see here, this is just a screenshot I took from Windy this morning. We have the trade winds coming down, and here's all your islands and the blue patches, so just patches of light wind. So you could have a 5-10 knot difference just by falling the wind shadow of one of the islands, except that you may not even see the island anymore. You could be 50 miles, you know, you could be 100 miles away, but you're still in its effect. So this was something to really keep in your head, and just, you know, make sure that you weren't going to fall into this patch of light wind when, you know, someone else only a mile away from you could be in stronger wind. So it was, yeah, something again to always be thinking about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the problems I had during this race, because it's such a long race. As I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. There are always going to be problems. This is what I was told going out. So my coach said, it's not that you're not going to have problems. That's impossible. It's not about the problems you will encounter, but how you're going to fix them. That's what actually matters. So make sure you bring enough spares, but don't bring too many spares, because you'd be too heavy. You can't bring a spare boat. You can't tow that behind you. So there's only so much you can deal with, and it's trying to be clever about what you bring, that you have enough, but not bring too much that you're heavy. And then a good friend who'd done the race before, he told me that you're going to have a problem every day. Wake up in the morning and ask yourself, what's today's problem and how am I going to fix it? That's how you're going to get through the Mini Transat. So, and he said, if you can't find the problem, don't worry, it's there. You have to go looking for it. So he said, every day, if you haven't found your problem yet, do a check of your boat, look after it. It's a mechanical sport. Your boat is your lifeline. You know, if you break your boat or something, your race is gone. So it's not only performance, but it's also your safety, because we are out doing something completely incredible. We're away thousands of miles away from land. Yes, we have some safety nets. We have support boats that are there to help us. We have our competitors. We have maybe a cargo ship. But at the end of the day, we are pretty much on our own. And if you call in any assistance, if you call for any of the safety nets, you're disqualified from the race. So, you know, that's not the objective. The objective is still a race, to be competitive. And yeah, as soon as you have to call on support, you're out. So some of the problems that I encountered, I did have a problem on my rig, on my mast. One of the cables from the backstay came undone. It's a little T connector, if you're familiar with them. And just, I'm not entirely sure how, but one morning I came out and I found it lying on the cockpit floor. And I was kind of looking, trying to figure out where it was going to come from. And I realized that actually it had fallen out of the mast. And so at that stage, I was weighing up my options and saying, okay, well, I actually really don't have any option. I have to climb up the mast solo to go put it back in. So at that stage, I take out all my climbing gear, which consists of the harness and a little gree and an ascender. So I send up a static line, clip myself in, rig it in, and climb up step by step. You step yourself up, you pull it tight, you sit back down, you move it up, and you can inch your way up. And it's very much inching. It's a lot of physical effort because you're pulling yourself up and every time. And it's you're going up about 10, 11 meters, which is fine when you're at port. When you're in the middle of the Atlantic, even with the 2-3 meter swell that's moving a little bit on the deck, you get used to it very quickly. 10 meters up, it's a very different story. So you're getting thrashed around a little bit. You're holding onto the spreaders, trying to, not get a spreader in the face and stuff like this. And you still got to work and you still got to, get your cable back in. So that was one of the problems I had. Another problem I had was with my winches. I had a winch that inside the little springs stopped being springy. Salt had got in, dried with the heat. And basically the winch was spinning in both directions. So absolutely useless as a winch. Got out my toolkit, took it apart, unscrewed it, being very, very careful not to throw one of the pieces in the ocean. I did have a few spare pieces on board, but the idea is still not A, to pollute the ocean, but B, not to lose anything. So took it apart very gently, while on the high side. That was one of the kind of choices I made. I said, okay, I'm going to wait a few hours till I jibe across. I'm going to do it at high side. So at least if I was to drop something, it's going to drop into the boat and not into the sea. That was my logic. Opened it up, found out the problem was that the springs were completely sealed up with the salt. Got out some alcohol, washed all the salt away, and I realized I need to lube it up somehow to, get it to function nice and smoothly. The only thing I could find on board was olive oil from my cooking set. Olive oil out, all across the winch, beautiful, mix it up like a salad, put it back together, and it functioned for the rest of the week. So got me all the way to Guadeloupe. I was pretty happy with that one. And the last thing I suppose I had, which wasn't a problem, but a very, very near miss, was on the autopilot RAM. So the autopilot is driving 95% of the time. I think once it's tuned properly, it's faster than me. And without the autopilot, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't do maneuvers that well because I'm relying usually on the autopilot to drive while I'm, trimming my spinnaker. Oh, we're back. Trimming or doing maneuvers and stuff like this. And one day I saw there's a lot of movement in the whole system and I heard a funny noise. So I kind of was thinking, okay, here's my alarm bell sounding. This is my daily problem. Went down, climbed in on my back onto the cockpit, and I'd seen that the one bolt that holds the whole system together, the linchpin in the operation, had snapped in two. One half had fallen out, and it was only just being held in by itself and gravity. That was the only thing. Half this bolt that was holding my entire autopilot system together. And the scary thing, I suppose, is that if that falls out, not only do you lose your autopilot, you can bolt it back together. But the real risk is that the autopilot falls and the hydraulic ram pushes itself out and breaks its own support. So either it burns out because it's working too hard, trying to push against something solid, or the solid thing being the boat, or the autopilot ram is pushing against the boat and it can break through either on its support end and it rips itself out of its housing, or even more scary is that it could, in theory, break through the boat. So neither of those are good possibilities. So alarm bells were ringing immediately. I saw what I need to do. I laid out all my tools, prepared, went upstairs, dropped the spinnaker, put it down into the cockpit, put my boat, sorry, I'm thinking in French for a minute, head to wind, just backed my jib, and then ran back downstairs, climbed in on my back onto the cockpit, like a F1 pit stop. Well, in my head, it was like this. Redid up my bolts, nice and tight, bam, back downwind, kite back up. So I have a few videos from what I was encountering on board. Okay, so put myself onto this one so I can't swing too far. Place this one up. Step into the old loop. we are. Okay. Test. Yeah. All right. Oh, yeah. What is this? What's that?
No!
4 or 5 minutes.
The cable's fallen. I'm gonna have to do it all again. You're kidding me. What a horrible bit of news. Down we come. Oh, yeah. Alright, this is a good practice session. Unfortunately, nothing more than that. Okay. Oh, the vash. I can't believe it. All right, take 2. Try to put it in like this. It's just gonna come out again. In here. That's not gonna come off easily. No, it's not. Okay. Take 2. Okay. Take a breath. There. Not anywhere. Right. Come on. Oh, there we go. Ah, my neck. Bingo. In we are. Bingo. Hi. Not nice taking this spreader in the face. Okay. That's all good. Ay. Down. Thank God.
Probably the scariest thing I had to do during this transatlantic crossing. Obviously, Murphy's Law was the day that I didn't really have any competitors around me. I couldn't see anyone on the AIS. I had no cargo ships. I couldn't call anyone for a bit of moral support. Obviously, that was the way it was going to happen. So I was able to climb up in the end and drop my cable, as you saw, go back down, go back up, and get it in. But yeah, it was definitely one of the scariest things I had to do. I dropped the spinnaker. You see, I'm only sailing under 2 sails, but the boat was still catching surf, still being picked up by the waves. So I'm still moving forward all the time, which the boat is more stable like that. If I dropped all the sails, it moves around even more. But yeah, it's still surfing at 7 or 8 knots sometimes, and you're up 10 meters in the air holding on. Just obviously the camera doesn't quite capture the motion as well. I was really getting thrashed around at sometimes, but yeah, hopefully that was clear the photo. And then here we have, yes, my little pit stop maneuver. How I manage my sails and how I drop solo, which is quite interesting. Oh yeah, caught my camera. All right. The water.
Okay, let's fold this in. What's that about? It's not released properly. Oh, this.
Broken a base bridge. First time, I paid a lot of attention to fold it in properly and make sure I wasn't going to break a second one.
Look inside.
Hove 2.
Weird. Here. Okay. So. Breaking out. No. Okay. What was it here? Right. Okay. Good. Mess. No problem. Back stay off. Back to cruise behind people.
Close.
Okay, come on, there we go.
In the cut down version, the whole operation in reality took me only 8.5 minutes. So I was pretty tough for that, to be honest. From the moment I opened the clutch to drop my spinnaker to the moment that I reached the end of the tack line again.
All right.
8.5 minutes. So I was pretty tough for that one. There was a blue bucket in the cockpit at one stage. Does anyone want to hazard a guess as to its function? Bucket and chuck it, exactly. The plumbing system on board is not very complicated. That's all I'll say to you. And yeah, I think as Owen was mentioning as well, you can see how lightweight the boat is. When the boat, I said, it's only 1,000 kilos. It's less than a ton. So you can, when you're inside, you can see the sunlight come through the hull. It's a little disconcerting at first when you first go out. And you see kind of it flex when you get hit by a wave. You see the hull flex a little bit. But over time, you learn to appreciate how solid the boat actually is, and you learn to trust it more and more. And I suppose that's the necessity to do the qualification. And with this boat, I've sailed priced over 10,000 miles. 4.5 being the way in the Transat, plus all that I did by myself. We came up to Wexford, actually, from France up to Wexford and back down again. That was my 1,000 mile. And then I did 3,500 miles of racing. So obviously all spread out over a number of years, but that just gives you a little bit of an understanding of how much time I spent on board, getting to know her, and just appreciating actually just, all the little details and all the bits and pieces. So I'm talking a lot about miles. The second leg of this race, as I said, was over 2,500. After that time, after 2,500 miles, after 16.5 days, I say that had a close finish. What do we think a close finish is? Is it 24 hours? Is it 1 hour? Is it a week? What are we? I want to hazard a guess. In sight, yeah, very much in sight. 27 seconds. And so you see, here I am arriving, and you notice in the videos I'm behind when I am approaching the line. I'm very, very happy to say by the time I crossed the line, I was ahead. So in the last night of the Transat, well, I suppose the second last day, I took an option more to the north. How I had my very limited weather information, but how I saw things was that I was going to go more to the north. I was going to drive, I was going to get a wind shift, and I was going to come like a rocket back into the south, and I was going to gain loads of places, it's going to be great. Except that the reality was, when I had came back down south, the boats that were 15 miles behind me, there was a group of 3, and I had ticked them off my list. Basically, I had said, right, that's that. I'm never seeing them again until we get to, onto the pontoons in the rearview mirror. Don't need to worry about them. They're 15, 20 miles behind. I see them pop out ahead of me 15 to 20 miles ahead on the AIS, and I'm going, oh no, kicking myself. I said, okay, well, that's not a possibility. That's not happening. That was a really, really good motivator for the last night, to just give it absolute socks, give it everything I had. I think, again, I slept 1 hour that last night, hardly ate, hardly drank, because I didn't want to take the time to go downstairs and refill my water bottle. So it was completely crazy. We had a lot of squalls that night. The closer you get to the Caribbean in general, the more squalls and the more charged the atmosphere is with the heat. So a lot of squalls. And that night I played my cards really well, jibed at the perfect moment for all the squalls. I managed to come out of one of the wind shifts in particular, lined up with all 3 of them. And so at this stage, I knew it was a drag race, and I only had 100 miles to go. And I said, okay, it's a drag race. I've got 12 hours, more or less, drag race to the finish. So hell for leather, here we go. And I managed to get 2 out of 3 of them, and the second being him right to literally the very, very last moment. I got ahead of him. At 5 miles away from the finish line, we have an island we had to go around. He got ahead of me at the island because I did a peel, put up my spinnaker with a twist. He got round me. I said, wow, no, I got him back. That's not happening. And so I managed to get the spinnaker filled again. And we had a little bit of seaweed or algae stuck on my keel. So I sent down my GoPro and saw that there was, a nice little packet of seaweed stuck onto the front of the keel. Went head to the wind, reversed, got rid of the seaweed, started sailing again, had 200 meters of a gap between myself and himself, but managed to stay low, stay right in his tail. And every little gust, every little wave, I'd surf it down and I get inside him. And I knew in my head I had to create some lateral distance. If I was just going to follow him, I'd never get past him. So I had to get inside him somehow. Or my other option was just to luff up, accelerate, and try go, around the top of him. But he was pretty smart as well. Every time I'd luff up, he'd go. So I knew that wasn't going to be an option either. So we were coming down, and at one moment, I was completely focused on what I was doing. I have to say my hand was trembling. I was going, I'm going to get him. Come on, this has to happen. I look over, and we're neck and neck. And I knew I was going to get it because he lost his cool. I saw him, he was banging on his boat and going, let him on the inside. And just, he completely lost his cool. He lost his head. And I just kind of went, yes, got him. And I managed to keep inside him, jibe right on the line. I don't think I even filmed my kite on the new side. Jibe right on the line, and he finished 27 seconds afterwards. So you can see some of the images from. I'll play the video again because it's. Magnificent arrival just at sunset. I don't think we could have done it better if we tried. This was the wonderful finish in Guadeloupe. And the very first thing you get when you arrive on the pontoon, local specialty, rum punch straight into your hand. It's the first thing I drank all day, and it hit like a ton of bricks. But I was very happy to be back on land. I was swaying quite a lot. I don't think anything to do with the rum punch. I think that was just the fact to be acclimatized to my boat for so long. It was just such a magical experience to have. Yeah, here you are. There's the finish line, and he was literally just out of the camera angle there. For me to have got across the Atlantic, but also to have seen this campaign right to the end. It's 3 years of work, 4 years since I probably imagined it, had this kind of first dream, and said, okay, right, I want to go for this, and I want to do it seriously. So, it was just like such a relief, such a happy moment, and such an exhilaration to cross that line and get towed into the harbour, and just to have family and friends cheering me on and welcome me in. So I suppose I'll talk a little bit about why I did this whole campaign. You know, I dedicated the last 3.5, 4 years to putting together this whole campaign, to find the boat, to honestly at times question why I was there. There were so many times I was driving along in a gale, or you know, you have a problem, something breaks, you go, is this really worth it? My very first year I dismasted. I lost the rig because my backstay broke. We have running backstays, so and there's a possibility that both can come off. And in my case, the rope broke, slipped through the clutch, dismasted. And that was a real moment of, okay, look, I've done a season. Do I just call it quits and say that actually, you know what, I've had a great time, I've learned a lot, I've progressed a lot, but you know, that's where we call it? Or do I keep going? Do I find a new mast, find, you know, more money, find sponsors, train more, immerse myself more? And it's something I realize is that, okay, fine, it's difficult, sure. But when I take a step back, I enjoy it so much. I like the moments when they're good, they are so good. And I was really, really captivated by this whole thing of mini sailing, and more than anything, crossing an ocean. I just think that's, you know, one of the coolest things you can do, cross an ocean. I mean, yeah, you can do it in a plane, fine, but I can do it in a boat. And that was just something that drove me to keep going. And yeah, even when times got tough, I said, okay, but think about how lucky you are. Think about where you are, first of all. Think about what you're actually doing. And more than anything, I suppose it's like when you get halfway through, you say, okay, well, you know, I've given so much to be here now. I can't give up now. And it's always just, you know, you push yourself a little bit further. You go, okay, well, I just need to get through tomorrow. And then tomorrow's done. And you say, okay, well, actually, I've already done half the race. So I just need to get through another half of it and I'm done. And you just keep breaking down little by little. And that's kind of how I was able to push myself and nurse myself through it, I guess. So that's the past tense. I suppose we're going to look at what's next. There is bigger boats and bigger races. So the Route to Rome, I guess, is my objective, which is a solo transatlantic race without a stop. So the Mini Transat, we had a stopover in the Canaries. The kind of big race in the Class 40 calendar would be a Route to Rome, and that goes straight from Saint-Malo in the north of France, straight across to the Canaries. So they use a Class 40, which is twice as big as what I had. I'd say 10 times the loading. So, you know, the ropes on a Mini or the winches on a Mini are all human sized, as I say, like the winches were this big. As soon as you start going up in tonnage or up in length of a boat, it's exponential. So, you know, all the ropes and stuff, there's a lot less room for error is what I'm trying to say. I suppose you make a mistake in Mini, you can recover because everything's human size. You make a mistake in a bigger boat, it's a lot more penalizing. And unfortunately, the budgets go up as well. So the Mini, it was something that I was able to work for the first 2 years and then get sponsorship through people in Ireland. It's, I suppose, accessible in that regard. Class 40 is a completely professional level. And so everything steps up a notch. You have to be on your game all the time. It's, you know, best performance. And it's a professional scene, so you're, you know, racing with professional racemakers, etc. So yeah, that's what I'd like to do. So I'd just like to say thank you for all your attention for the last hour. I hope I haven't bored you too much. I'd like to say thank you to my sponsors. Do you see them here on the side of the boat? For helping me to fulfill my dream, basically, to support me in this adventure. And I just give a little special mention to, well, one, Radio Services, wherever Rowan is back there, and two, Orbis, who are not a sponsor, they're a charity partner, so they do wonderful work in Ethiopia, helping prevent blindness or cure blindness. The statistic is incredible. 90% of all blindness is either preventable or treatable. You know, it's unnecessary. So they're doing great work in Ethiopia to provide, you know, clean water so that the eyes can be disinfected and stuff. Very, very simple, effective measures like that. So I'll take any questions from the floor if there's anything, or if there's online questions, I'll take some of those as well. Anyone like to start?
Did you finish overall?
20th out of 90.
Out of how many?
90.
Well,
Yeah.
Are they both one design? Are they all the same?
No, they're on a box rule.
Box.
So and then there's two categories. We have the prototype and we have the series. So prototype is a lot more relaxed. You can have carbon fiber, canting keel, foils, dagger woods. I was saying the series class because I wanted to have an easier campaign, an easier way to start, less technical boats, so I could spend more time in the water, more time training. And also, I suppose I went into this as a bit of a novice. I didn't really have any experience in composites or boat building or anything. So for me, the obvious choice was series. So we have aluminium masts, single speed winches, has to be made out of fiberglass, fixed rudders, etc. So fixed keels. 1.6 meters.
1.6.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah. And I think the bulb was 300 kilos.
They don't count, do they?
No, in the series they're fixed keels. Yeah.
can you tell us about how you put the package together? Like, there's not a sponsorship,
Mhm.
there's a lot of strings to be pulled together to make it happen.
100%. Yeah.
And how did you, what the boat organization, like, is it a single organization that supplies the boats, or how does that work?
So the boat itself was built by a French shipyard, and there's many different French shipyards that there's many shipyards full stop that build the boats. So the architect draws up the plans following the class rules. They submit it to the class for validation, and then the shipyards are free to build however many they want. So each skipper either rents or buys their boat, and then they put together their own campaigns. So like, I suppose I'm competing on the water with the other 89 people, but you're also competing for the same resources and the same kind of sponsorship pool. Maybe if you're French, and the same spaces in the training centers. There's a whole raft of strings to be pulled, as you say.
Did you have a team to help you with that, or was it your own?
Yeah. As I progressed further and further in the campaign, yeah, I was able to get some team stuff now. Not a professional team, not a paid team. I was relying a lot on volunteers. So I had some great people from my own sailing club. I learned to sail in Dunleary International. So I had some great people from there who were able to kind of take on a sponsorship management role, or help me find, other things, or give me some technical advice. Another person, Yannick Lemonnier in Quantum Sales, he did the Mini Transat in 2021. I think I would have been lost completely without him. I think the first phone call I made was to him and said, okay, I'm thinking about doing this. What do I need to, avoid, or what do I need to do? Which boats, etc., etc. Asked him a lot of questions. And then the other Irish sailors in Brittany doing offshore sailing. So Tom Dolan, who's a name we've seen a few times in a float recently. He's been doing super in the Figaro class. I called him up and said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. I'm thinking of doing it seriously. What do I need to do? Well, like, how did you get to where you are, sort of thing. And so, yeah, without the support network, I don't think I ever would have ever got so far. And same goes with family, same with friends. I think just the amount of support I got was incredible. And I can't say thank you enough to these people, because yeah, I would never have been able to do it solo. As I say, it's a solo race, but I would never ever have been able to do it solo.
Just a question from online. What was your most enjoyable moment?
Ooh, most enjoyable. I would say just going out and sailing into the sunset every night. On the Transat, you're sailing west, you're sailing into the sunset, and there was quite a few moments I was just sitting there and purposely stepped back and took a minute just to bring it all in. Yeah.
How did the boat get back?
So we shipped them back in a cargo. So we have 90 boats. There was 88 boats that arrived on the other side. We ship across our cradles. We assemble them on the other side, and then it's like a big bulk carrier. They put 40 downstairs. They close up the doors and put another 40 on the deck.
And also the second question is, when you're jumping now to 40 foot
Mhm.
max,
is that a single class race as well? This I can't remember.
Route to Rome. Yeah, you'd be racing against other class 40s, basically.
But
Yeah.
all in the same, in a similar to what you
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
they're all in the same boatyard, kind of similar setups, or is it?
Yeah, again, there'd be different architects, there'd be different designs. So I suppose it's not a one design
Okay.
fleet in the
Yeah.
class 40s. You can have newer generation boats and newer generation boats, basically.
So
and
it's more open. It's
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What about physical fitness in your regime for the race?
Tough to balance the physical training with the kind of boat work and preparation. Because I was doing a lot of the boat work myself, it was difficult to be disciplined and get out for a run or do whatever. But I felt it was paid off huge dividends, certainly as I was getting closer into the hotter climate. I think Irish people, maybe in general, aren't so adapted to the sun and the heat. I can only speak for myself, but I certainly was wrapping up with, broader and hats and long sleeve t-shirts and stuff to make sure I wasn't getting too affected by the sun. And then so in the heat, you're sweating a lot, etc. So having done some swimming and, I was trying to go swimming at least twice a week and go for a run every now and again and do some physical, exercise, that paid dividends. And I suppose the second aspect is your mental capacity goes downhill a lot when things start getting difficult. If everything's easy, then the mental side of things is easier. So if you're struggling, to winch something or pull something in, and you're really struggling because it's too heavy, that's obviously very difficult. Whereas if you're training, you have a little bit more muscle mass, you can kind of in easier, and life is easier. So, yeah, I was trying to keep on top. Trying to balance everything is difficult, though. That's the short answer.
What was your extreme weather protocol? So if you were going to be hitting the Atlantic with very, very strong winds, what was your plan for that?
Drop all sails, lash everything down, and kind of batten down the hatches, basically.
Drones or anything?
Yeah. So we do have, I say, a really, really long list of safety equipment that we absolutely have to have, drogue being part of it. And you can also trail all your lines, all your spinnaker sheets, etc., that you definitely will be using during that sort of weather. You can train them out the back and tie them onto your winches or any solid points on the boat. So that being said, on a transat like this, you tend to be more south and in the trade winds that, in theory, fingers crossed, knock on wood and all that sort of stuff, but you should be far enough south that actually you're away from most of the systems. So during the winter, most of the depressions come up across the North Atlantic, and we're going down in the trade wind belt. So
You have a life raft on board?
yeah. Right at the back of the boat, you see here is an escape hatch, so that we can get to the life raft from the back or through the front as well.
So those designs make a big difference. You're saying sort of
Huge, yeah, absolutely. So it planes and surfs really quickly. You can also, because it's so broad, you get a lot more resistance from the water. When you push down, there's more surface area to push back up, which means you can have bigger sails, or you can hold them for longer. So you can, like my big spinnaker, my A2, I can hold right up to about 18 knots. Whereas before I was sailing, when I first started, I was sailing on a different design with a pointy bow. And by 14, 15, you really had to drop, or else you're just completely broaching all the time, or more overpowered. So, yeah, it makes a huge difference in what sails, I suppose, the design and all that, but what sails you can use and carry. And also, the best benefit, it's dry. If you see here, the waves are actually breaking forward. So you slap down, you slam on them, but the waves break forward and you stay very, very dry on board. So it's... That's a great question. Yeah.
I suppose the class 40s are doing that now. They all
Yeah.
look like that, and even the Amakas, the big.
Exactly. Yeah. They're all heading that way, basically. It leads to its problems because if you think of, going upwind, certainly in a traditional boat, very pointy bow, it breaks through the waves. The waves breaks either side and gets parted like that. That doesn't happen I've had a few extreme cases where you have some very short waves and you break straight onto the front of the boat and the boat gets pushed backwards. Thankfully, it doesn't happen too often. Usually, it just kind of takes it on the nose and you get slowed down a bit. But there's a lot of force and shock loads put on the boat, on the structure, and so knowing when to push and when to throttle back is quite important for a transat, because we're going downwind. And when I say the boat was designed for a transat, that's kind of what I mean. You're typically, it's a downwind race, downhill race. It takes less toll on the boat, and that's the reason we don't sail them back, because through the North Atlantic it's a shorter sea, it's stronger winds, could very well be upwind, and yeah, the boats aren't really designed for that. Yeah, the killer whales, the orcas, off the coast of Portugal or Spain, they have gotten a few rudders now. They're not necessarily sinking boats. These boats have so much flotation foam in them that they, even if the keel breaks off and it feels, your race is over. So yeah, there is. Thankfully, this year no one got affected by the orcas, but there was a case 2 years ago where one of the boats was visited. Nothing bad happened. He was on a prototype, so he lifted up his 2 rudders. But he said it was quite scary. He dropped all his sails, took as much out of the water as he could, and he was just lying down in his boat for 10 minutes waiting for them to pass. And he could feel the orcas pushing with their nose on through the skin of the boat, because as I said, like the boats are quite light. You can see when you get hit by a wave, it flexes a bit. So he's lying kind of on his beanbag, waiting for the orcas to pass, and you can feel them kind of prodding him in the back.
In the lucky weather, did you use 3-point harness if you were having a kit?
Yeah, I think I was always attached pretty much all the time. Maybe with the exception of very, very light winds, but either with the life jacket with all the safety beacons in it, so AIS beacon or PLB. So if I was to fall overboard, it can relay through satellites, and clipped in with the life jacket on a tether that in theory I can't fall overboard with because it's too short. And as weather got hotter, I was more in a harness. So not with the life jacket, just because very bulky and very heavy and weighs a lot on your shoulders, but just with the body harness that I clip in and then clip onto that, and then I have my beacons in a little pouch like a bum bag.
What was your fastest day as well?
I think I did about 230 miles in a day. Yeah, so I was getting surfs at 20, 19, 20, and then the fastest I've ever gone on the boat was 22.5, which was seat of the pants stuff. Yeah, yeah, that was a hairy day. During the Transat, I think I hit 21.5, so it was still pretty good, but not my absolute record. My average speed was 8.6 knots. So considering the first 3 days were so slow, I think it was pretty good. Yeah.
Did you lose a significant amount of body weight?
5 kilos. Yeah. So I actually was lucky enough to sail back as well on a different boat. I sailed back on a 60-foot IMOCA, who had done the Transat Killaloe over to Martinique. So I did a little bit of hitchhiking while I was there and hopped on with him for the way back. So between those 2 transats, it was 5 kilos. I'd say mostly muscle mass. If I'm honest, mostly my legs. But yeah, it was. Yeah, no, I was feeling a little bit weak after the 2 of them. Yeah, and exhausted as well. Very, very tired. It took me quite a while to get back in form. So much I go as far to say that I'm probably still not on 95, but not only from the transats, the transat itself, I was whack tired, and coming back, it was tiring. But I think it's also 3 years of nonstop work. Like I didn't really take a weekend off. I never really took a holiday for too long, you know. So yeah, I think the whole accumulation by the time I got home for Christmas, I was wiped. I think I slept for probably 12 hours a night. Woke up, go, why am I still this tired? Went for a nap, it's just, yeah. So
What was the sales each bought with you? Like, what was your selection?
So we're limited to 6 sales. So one has to be mainsail, one has to be a jib, one has to be a storm sail. So there's 3 already gone. After that, I have 2 spinnakers and a code 0. It's kind of my sail wardrobe. Almost all our sails are reefable because we're limited to only 6. So the main is reefable. The jib is also reefable, so we can reef that vertically, take it down and reclip it on higher points. And then the heavy weather spinnaker is also reefable. So we can, when it's down, you roll it up, you zip it, and you clip it into new straps. So it's trying to make all your sails work double, basically.
How old are you?
I'm 26.
What's your journey like then from starting the sail to being 26 and going off on that?
So I didn't start sailing when I didn't learn to walk on a boat as probably a lot of my competitors did. Neither of my parents are sailors. They're not. I'm not really from a sailing family like that. So I always tell people that I kind of started sailing by accident a little bit. My uncle, my aunt's husband came from a good sailing family, and kind of said to my parents, would Mark be interested in doing a summer course for 2 weeks in Dún Laoghaire? And I said, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. And I did my 2 weeks and absolutely loved it. Went back the summer afterwards, did as many courses I could possibly do. And my parents were just really supportive and rolled with it and said, okay, well, this seems to be something he's getting into. So I started doing more competitions, and I was, I think, 12 when I did my first summer course. And so I was, 13 or 14 when I started competing. My first ever race, I didn't even get around the race course. And before they were picking up all the marks, they said, oh no, come on, it's time to go home now.
What were you sailing in?
I was sailing in a topper at that stage. Yeah. So same shape boat, actually. Yeah.
Love a good scout.
Yeah. Probably same size as well, to be honest. It's funny because, for context, a laser is what, 17 or 18 feet, something like that, or maybe 13 and a half. Yeah. So, we're smaller than J24 anyway.
What's the campaign like that cost? Order of magnitude.
Over the 3 years, I spent about 70,000. So most of my paychecks went in, divided by 2. No, not including the boat. The boat itself, I bought for 120. And so running costs, entry, insurance, shipping, etc. That's the expensive part.
What's the 40 foot and you're jumping
10 times, 15 times. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the price to a bigger boat, unfortunately. Okay.
That was really fascinating. I hold my hat out to you. I would never in a million years have done something like that, even at your age, but fantastic. And best of luck with the next leg.
Thank you.
I'd like to say there's teas and coffees, but there's cold tea and coffee, but I will boil the kettle, but there are still biscuits and cake up there, anybody wants. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for putting up with me.
Yeah. I think we could do it. So, yeah.